So in this lecture we're going to get this our class Mario done. So in this our class Mario, let me just give here as a pg dot sprite, should be sprite, and just give a sprite class here again in order to build up an inheritance, so that can be used to implement basically the functions of this class. So next thing what we're gonna do is just initializer in this Mario, and that will initialize first obviously this sprite, so that should be sprite sit. So let me say that sprite sit. So what is this sprite sit? So let me show you quickly. So this sprite sheet would be, first we have just implemented this setup in the previous lecture. So if you see here in this setup, we have something that is loading this JFX from here. So let me do that in this Mario now. So let's get back to this mario.py, and in this setup what you're gonna take is just call this JFX now, and in this that should be setup. Yes, we haven't imported that setup first, so let me import that quickly. So inside these tools, let me just import this setup now. So that should be setup, and after that let me just use this JFX to include this Mario Bros. So what is this Mario Bros? It is basically sprite sheet. So if you can go here, so if you just hover to this resources and go to this graphics and just see here Mario underscore Bros, then you can see this is the sprite sheet. So when you just zoom a bit, you can see our basically Mario. So you can see here a red Mario, you can see black Mario, you can also see the normal Mario. So we have now this sprite sheet which is loaded in this mario.py. So next thing what you're gonna do is, so let me quickly just remove all of these tabs. So it's really confusing now, so let me just remove all of it. And now the next thing what you're gonna do is, I'll just have the timer now, timer setup. So first we'll say I have to just call this setup timer now, and that should be setup timers. And next thing what you're gonna do is and this is basically a function which we'll just create in a bit. And the next thing what you're gonna create is, we'll just firstly we'll say self.state. So this state should be the variable, and that should be c.walk here. So after this we're gonna set now image. So we'll say self.image here, and this image should be set as self.get the right frame, and it should be right frames. And this is basically a function which will be created in a bit, and just give here something that is a self.frame index. So let's implement some of the methods. So firstly we're gonna go here, and what we're gonna do next is, let me just create one new here, that is a key timer, and let me say this key timer default value is in 0, and we can begin by creating the functions in this Mario now. So first we'll just set up this timer. So from this setup timer method, so I'll say just implement this setup timer here, and this should be now setup timer. And the next thing what you're gonna do is, this is basically setting up. So let me just comment it out and say you that it is setting up, it sets up basically timer for animation. So it's set up a timer for animation. So let's create that. So what it is gonna be doing is, firstly we'll say walking timer. So it will just be walking timer here, and that should be O initially, that is initializes O. And after that the next thing we're gonna do is invincible animation timer, and that should be self.invincible. So let me create invincible invincible animation timer, and it should be also initially at 0. And now next thing will be as an invincible start timer. So self.invincible again, but in this case it should be start timer, and it should be O, and this is basically an animation for our Mario. So next thing what we're gonna do is we'll just set the death timer for our Mario, and that would be initially as an O here. So next thing what we're gonna do is we'll just create another function, and that would be define setup, and that should be setup state booleans. So this will be setup state booleans, and it will just take the current object, that will be Mario, and this basically set offs a boolean and that affect Mario behavior. So it will just affect our Mario behavior. So let's get into it. So let me just give out space here, some space. Let's do it now. So here we just have to set some of the booleans to the parameters. So that would be first as in facing right. So is our Mario facing right? Yes, so that means true. So if we allow our Mario to jump or not, if we are allowing Mario to jump, obviously we want. So self.dead. Do you want your Mario to be dead at the beginning? Obviously not. And after that self invincible, and let me say invincible, and let me just cut it out, and invincible should be false even. And this is basically setting up at the beginning. So this should be the state booleans at the beginning. So let me say self.big. So this big means a big Mario, or change in the size of a Mario, that should be false at the beginning. And similarly allow, basically we'll say something that is allowing to have this fireball after these fireballs, and we'll just stick to these variables or this list at this time, and we'll just define more of the attribute in the next upcoming lecture if you want more. So for now what we're gonna do next is we'll just set up the forces for our Mario from this function, that will be set up forces. And what you're gonna do here is you will set up the forces, all the forces for Mario that affects Mario velocity. So this will be just affecting your speed of your Mario. So that would be first just create the velocity variable for this x velocity, because velocity is a vector, so it should have x and y position. So next, that means we'll just have a y position too, that is y velocity should be initially at O, and I'll say self.max here, self.max x, and that should be velocity. So this should be the maximum velocity at x direction, should be c.max walk speed. So this should be our walk speed. Now next will be the velocity in the y direction, that is self.max, instead of x we'll just say y, and velocity should be now c.max, and that should be predefined value, and that is y vel. So if you wonder what is this about, so go in this constant on py and check for here velocity. It should be somewhere here. So let me just see here, and here's our velocity. So if you wonder, so this is the max y velocity. Just you can play around with this number, so it can be from 0 to 20 and 25 for the maximum velocity. So just stick to 11 here in this lecture, and we'll just improve its velocity as we want when we run our game first, and we'll just keep on improvising this velocity as our game requires. So next thing what you're gonna do is just go back to this mario.py again, and the next attribute here can be self.x acceleration. So that should be acceleration. Now let me say ACCEL, and that should be walk acceleration that we just have that assigned in this constant value, and that should be walk acceleration and self dot. Now time for the jump velocity. So this should be jump and velocity. What should be the speed, or what should be the velocity for the jump of the Mario? So that should be c dot jump velocity. And the next thing what you're gonna do is we'll just assign the gravity now to the Mario. So that would be c dot gravity. And the next thing what you're gonna do is we'll just create another that is function which will just set up the counters now. So let's do quickly that. So first what we're gonna do is we'll say set up counters. So this counter will obviously take the current object, that is the Mario here. So we'll say self dot frame and index. So frame index should be O here, and this basically this setup counter will just keep tracks. So it keep track of various maybe various important values, like basically the invincible index, or you can also say fireball count, flag pole if you want to implement flag. So that will be in this setup counters. And similarly I'll say next one is a self dot invincible, because we are using this invincible character for our Mario. So I'll say invincible index should be O here. So we'll just implement these two parameters or two attribute for the Mario here in this set of counters. So next thing what you're gonna do will be we'll just load the images from the set with this method, that is load images. Let me say load images from set. So if you wonder what the set is all about, set is here. If you go in this resources and go in this basically Mario bros.png, this is our sprite sheet. So we want to extract the part of this sprite sheet, basically this Mario. So how gonna we implement that is basically we'll just create the rectangle, and we'll just position that rectangle in the basically in the character that we want to extract, and we'll just extract from that rectangle. So let's do that. And what we're gonna do here is we'll just extract the Mario image. So let me say sum of the list here. Let me make the sum of the list that refers right frames. That is basically, if you see here, we have track for the frame index, and right frame is basically when the Mario turns to the right. So let's make that as an empty list. And similarly let's make this self dot left now, left frames, and this left frame will be also the empty list. And after that we'll have now a bunch of an attribute for our Mario, so that the right small normal frame, so that can be the normal frame for our Mario. And similarly let me just see here, and that can be just, let me copy it and let me just paste it down here, and instead of this right small it can be here, that is a left small. So let me create here left small and normal frame, and after that let me just paste it again here, and it should be right small. Instead of normal it can be here a green frame. So green frame is basically for our green character of the Mario. So if you go here in the Mario Bros, you can see here the green character. So if you see here, there is a normal here. So normal is the size basically. So let's go back to Mario and create some more of the character to be extracted, and that can be now, this is basically for right. So let me just create a left again, and this should be small. The next one that we can do is just paste it one again, and this should be right and small, and it should be now not normal, it should be green here. So it should be green, and in here that is right small normal, we'll just implement something is here red. So red frame, we need a red frame now, and let me just copy it again because we need this same one for the left. So let me copy it, and instead of this right, let me just implement it is left. And now time to add the black frame. So here should be right, and it should be small, and you can see it should be black frame. And now instead of this that is right, we should add now again for the left, and this is basically for the frame that is at the right and left. And let me show you what is really mean by that. So in Mario Bros we have this normal size, small size, and the frame that is basically small. So this is basically what you're calling about this black, and this was, so red would be somewhere here, and this is normal green. So we have implemented that list to extract those character from there. So next thing what you're gonna do will be, after this we'll just create same that is here is in small, and the normal green, red and black will just implement for the big, because if you see in this Mario Bros you have a small one and similarly you have a big one. So we'll just implemented this small one, so it's time to go for the big one. So let me just copy all of these, and here let me paste it now. So instead of this small, what you're gonna have is big. So you can just do here in all of these, that is instead of small you just go here and make it big, and make it big again, and let me just make this one big, and again this should be also bigger, and the one we have 3 more, this should be also bigger, and similarly this should be bigger, and the last one should be also bigger. So let's make a 2 new frame again, that should be for the fire frame. So let me say self.write.fire frame frames. Let me say frames, it should be also an empty list, and now it's for right. Let me just copy it and just paste it for left. So this will be all our list, and this is basically list for our frames. So in the next lecture we will basically append some of the character by extracting from this Mario sheets and append that into this list. So see you in the next.